First, good morning, everybody. As I know, it's just after 9 o'clock here. As people are joining, I want to make sure that everybody is aware that there is interpretation rooms for both Hmong language and Spanish language. And I'm going to be setting that up right now as we get started here. To Spanish. So if you're on the call here, you can click the interpretation button and down at the bottom, and you'll be able to select the language that you want to listen in. And I'm going to let you take over, Kimberly. I'm going to be setting up our Facebook Live feed and let you guys take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, my name is Kimberly Mccoy. I am a Outreach and Oversight Committee member. Thank you for joining us for our session on bike safety. This session will highlight bicycle safety measures for individuals, educate the community on different bikeway facilities, and inform attendees about new bikeways included in the Transform Fresno grant that will be implemented in the next couple of years. Panelists will also discuss how community members can get more involved in the discussion on bicycle and pedestrian improvements through the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, also known as Bpac, and share upcoming bicycle education opportunities. Please join me in welcoming our presenters, Laura Gromes and Cecilio Garcia.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for the introduction. Yes, we are excited to be working on the Bike Safe Fresno program. My name is Laura Gromes. I'm the Executive Director of the U.S. Green Building Council, Central California. We are a 501c3 nonprofit located in Fresno. And our mission is to transform the way buildings and communities are designed, built, and operated. You might wonder, we are the U.S. Green Building Council. Why are we working on active transportation? And so this pie chart gives you a little bit of an idea. We are very committed to working towards solutions that creates a livable world and livable communities for us. And here we see the total CO2 emissions in California from 2017, and you see the biggest batch, 41%, is from transportation. So if we want to address climate change and create transformative climate communities, we have to really look at transportation as one of the issues to address. And what better way than to look at active transportation, walking and biking in our neighborhoods. If we move away from our cars and get on our bikes and on our feet, this reduces congestion and it reduces the locally produced emissions, which is good for your health and is in a lot of times it's fun too. And we realize that in Fresno, there's a lot of work to be done. And I always say it's kind of like the chicken and egg problem. We have to have more people on the road and we have to have better roads. So that's why we have to address it from both sides. And that's why we are working in collaboration with Public Works. Our organization is more focused on the bicycle education. And of course, we're relying on Public Works to create better streets for all. That means streets that are not just focused on cars, but are also focused on the humans that use it on their feet and with their bikes. With our Bike Safe Fresno program, we have bicycle education with the smart cycling curriculum. Look out for upcoming opportunities in May. We are still setting the date. May is Bike Month, and so we'll have still some virtual opportunities. Due to COVID, of course, we had to adjust our programming a little bit. We provide the opportunity to talk about safe biking practices And we're looking for feedback on bicycling in Fresno and bicycle infrastructure for Southwest Fresno. A lot of that due to COVID got included in our website. So if you go to usgbccc.org/bikesafefresno, you'll find a bunch of info on active transportation. And we have this survey of what would help you to bike more around Fresno. And we would really hope for a lot of people to take this survey. Here we have the QR code, if you can scan that. If you cannot scan it or it doesn't work for you, please go to our website, usgbccc.org, bikesafefresno, and you will find the link to the survey. And we hope to have a lot of survey results and get some great insight on what is really hindering you from biking more around Fresno. All right, so about our today's session, Cecilio Garcia from Public Works from the city of Fresno is going to talk about bicycle facilities and some bike and pedestrian improvements through the TCC project. Then I'm going to talk about the 5 layers of bicycle safety. And we'll be also joined by Harman Dalival from Public Works from the city of Fresno, who's going to talk about the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Bpac, which is a great opportunity for you to become involved in the discussion around bicycle and pedestrian safety with the city of Fresno. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Cecilio, and he's going to talk about bicycle facility. Hey, Cecilio, here you go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate the warm introduction. So as Laura said, my name is Cecilio Garcia. I am a supervising engineering technician and project manager with the city of Fresno in the Department of Public Works and in our project management section. And today I just wanted to take a little time and talk a little bit about bike facilities, what kind of guidelines are available to us as engineers, project managers, and what's available to us as the city of Fresno. I wanted to talk through how that fits into the larger vision of the active transportation plan. And finally, I wanted to tie that all back to how that fits into the Transform Fresno and TCC funded projects and programs. So first off, bike facilities, what are they? We see them probably every day that we're driving around or biking or walking, taking the bus. And the California Department of Transportation defines several classifications of bike facilities, 4 to be specific. And those are defined in a document known as the Chapter 1000 of the Caltrans Highway Design Manual. So these facilities provide varying levels of separation from other traffic, and some are shared use. So this is all taken into consideration. Things like roadway volume, things like right-of-way available, things like the speed, the design speed of the roadway. So there's a lot of factors that go into deciding what type of class or what type of bike facility is included as part of our capital improvement projects and other projects. Next slide. Can I get the next slide, Laura? Thank you. So first and foremost, we have a Class 1 bike path. And we actually have a good example there. The image on the left is the Lewis Eden Trail over by Woodward Park. So per the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is another guiding document that engineers use, a completely separated right-of-way designated for exclusive use of bicycles and pedestrians with cross flows by motorists minimized. So in plain English, what does that mean? We essentially have a different pathway or different facility for exclusive use by bikes, by pedestrians, by people with wheelchairs, and that's separated from the actual roadway itself. Additionally, bi-directional shared use pathway located immediately adjacent and parallel to a roadway. So hopefully that broke it down a little bit more. Next slide, Laura. Thank you. So for class 2, we have buffered bike lanes. So buffered bike lanes are what you probably see most commonly around the city of Fresno. It's an exclusive lane for bicycle access within the roadway to separate bicyclists from the adjacent motor vehicle travel lane and or parking lane. Typically, you will see this in roadways that have an average daily traffic count of 3,000 vehicles or more per day. Also, you'll see this in roadways that are above 25 miles per hour. So just some very, very over-the-top design considerations when you see these class 2 bike facilities or bike lanes. But there are obviously a lot of other things that engineers look at to try and figure out what kind of facilities should go on that roadway. Next slide, Laura. Thank you. So for class 3, we have bike routes, and bike routes are essentially shared facilities. And they're defined as a road that designates preferred usage for bicyclists using a combination of signing, striping, or volume management. So you'll see in the image there's a bike route sign. Typically, this will be for a little bit slower and lesser volume of a roadway, where you will have a bike route, typically something more like downtown, something a little slower and I believe less than 25 miles per hour, or 25 miles per hour, about 30 to 25 miles per hour. But yeah, that's pretty much bike routes. Next slide, please. Perfect. So what you may have not seen in the city of Fresno just yet is a class 4 separated bikeway or a bike trail, bike path. Realistically, we should be seeing more of these in the city of Fresno. This was recently installed on R Street and Tulare, between Tulare and Ventura, if I'm not mistaken. And essentially, it's a separated bikeway. So a bikeway that's separated from vehicular traffic using horizontal and vertical elements. You'll see plastic bollards in this case being used. Separation can be made through flexible posts, inflexible physical barriers, planters, parked vehicles, and curbs. So again, it just provides a way for bikers to use the facilities in a little bit safer manner. Next slide. As I mentioned, bike facilities play a role in the overall vision of what the active transportation plan is for the city. And that active transportation plan is publicly available for each member of the public to access. But the active transportation plan takes into consideration walking, cycling, wheelchair access, as well as bus routes and how we interlock everything together. So we're trying to get people obviously a little more active. You'll see the link there to allow you to go onto and view the active transportation plan. And that will give you an idea of what facilities are planned in the future for the city of Fresno. Next slide.
Sorry, it always takes a little bit to come through.
Perfect, no problem. And I am actually going to take a moment here to go ahead and post the link for that ATP. Oh, looks like it got cut off. Give me just one more second. Sorry about that. There we go. So I'm sorry about that. I totally forgot you guys can't click on links on our presentation, but if you look at the chat, you should see a link to allow you to look at the City of Fresno's active transportation plan. And last but not least, I wanted to tie this all back to the Transform Fresno and TCC funded projects. So there are several projects that are taking active transportation into account. One of them being the Southwest Fresno Trail, and the lead agency on that is also the City of Fresno. It's actually in my section, and I believe Scott Tyler has that as part of his project load. We have number 7, the Clean Share Mobility Network, and my understanding is those items are still to be decided, or where the locations of those items are, and that's going to include some car shares, van pools, and bike sharing. And that is led by the Fresno Metro Black Chamber Foundation. We have number 8, Annandale Mode Shift. And that's a sidewalk gap closure on East Annandale Avenue between MLK and Elm. That's led by the Self-Help Enterprises as well as the City of Fresno. The TCC connector, which increases frequency of buses on Route 38 from downtown to Jensen and Cedar. That's led by the City of Fresno, the Fresno Area Express. So our bus department and transportation department. And number 22, Southwest Southside improvements. So that's also handled by the City of Fresno. It's trails, sidewalk, bike lanes around future Fresno City College campuses. And they're all kind of pointed out in our map. So if you wanted to learn more about those projects, I would highly encourage you to go onto the Transform Fresno webpage as well. You can check each one of those as well as all of the projects funded by TCC funding and see how they're progressing. You can also contact whoever is the lead agency on that and ask for more information on the projects. So I would highly encourage that. And I'll go ahead and post the link onto that. I believe each of you is likely familiar with that, but I will post that on there for you to have quick and easy access. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, for this informative overview. All right, yes, we do need a lot more safe streets here in Fresno to get around better. But in terms of ensuring that everybody's healthy, we also have to look at the bicycle user. So I'm going to talk a little bit about bicycle safety. So the whole intent of this TCC Transform Fresno program is to create transformative climate communities. And so when we look at biking, the interest is to get more people to choose bikes to get around for health, clean air, and climate considerations. So we need more safe biking infrastructure and safer biking habits. I have this little statistic here that gives an overview over crashes, why crashes happen. And the goal, of course, is to avoid crashes with bicycles. You'll see it's coming from a little bit older statistics, but it gives this great overview that it's about a 50-50 fault when we have accidents. We have 50% of those accidents are caused by bicyclists and 50% of those are caused by motorists. So that's important to keep in mind, that when we bike around in our communities, that we have the ability to exhibit safe behavior. But also for those of us that drive around in our communities, it's important to be aware that there's not only cars on the road, but that there's also bicyclists and pedestrians on the road. So there's different types of hazards when you're driving around. Cecilia gave a great overview over different types of bicycle facilities. And they cannot always prevent everything. Here in this picture, we see how sometimes there can be something in the way, like a door of a car when you are driving on a bikeway. So it's really important to be aware. There can be things on the surface of the road, debris, metal, water, cracks, uneven pavement, rails, all kinds of things that can be in the way. And of course, we are all influenced by the visibility. So it depends on the type of day, the weather, or anything that might be in your view. So those hazards, we cannot really do anything about them being there. We just have to be aware that when we are riding around, we have to keep our eyes open. And then in addition to these outside factors, there's also risky behaviors. Right? So riding on sidewalks is generally not a good idea. Riding the wrong way against traffic is not the right way of riding your bikes. Some people learn that you should ride against traffic because you can see ongoing traffic, but that's actually not the way to go. So when you're riding your bike, always follow traffic and ride on the right side of the road. You can also not ignore stop signs or traffic signals. They are, even if you're on your bike, you have to adhere to traffic laws and make sure to stop on stop signs. It's also important that you are yielding when turning. So it's very risky if you're failing to yield. So basically, follow traffic laws and make sure that you're minimizing your risky behavior is going to be important to ensure bicycle safety. There's this great concept of 5 layers of safety that I wanted to go through. First of all, let me just give the full overview. So we have the 5 layers of bike safety is first bike control, second obey the law, third positioning, fourth avoidance, and then 5 passive safety. So the first layer of safety, bike control, is just very simple. Don't fall or collide with others. You have to be able to control your bike. So before you start driving on the road, make sure that you learn how to ride your bike on a parking lot so that you know how to start, to stop, to signal, to maneuver. And that will help you to prevent to fall into other cars, cyclists, pedestrians, dogs, or anything else that might be in the way. So basically know how to ride a bike before you take your bike on the road. It's not the right place to learn how to ride your bike. And here on the right side, we also see the ways of signaling where you go. So if you're turning left, you use your left arm and stretch it all the way out. If you're stopping, you point to the ground. And then for a right turn, you have two options, either to put your left hand up or your right arm out. On cars, we don't have light signal. On bikes, we don't have light signals. We just have our arms. So it's important to signal those behind you where you're going. And if you are just driving your car around, it's important to see and to be aware of those signals that bicycle riders are giving when they're showing where they're intending to go. The second layer is obey the law. So you have the same rights and duties as motorists when you're riding on your bike, and you have to obey all traffic signals and stop signs. You have to ride with the traffic and use the rightmost lane that you're going to. So I think most people are aware of those traffic laws from driving their cars. So it's just really important to remember that just because you're on your bike doesn't mean you can just drive around like you want. Those traffic laws are really there in place to protect you. So that's the second layer. The third layer is the positioning. Discourage others from making mistakes that will impact you. Cecilio gave a great overview over a bike lane. So it's important to know when you control the lane or when to share lane. So we talked about the class 3 bike lane, which is a shared road. In case that you're questioning, if you're safe enough, if you ride on the right side, you can actually take the whole lane to make sure that you are safe. I ride around a lot with my kids, and they're still pretty young, 5 and 8. They're good bicycle riders, and that's what I teach them. If you feel like you are not safe, make sure that you are very visible. And when there's a shared road, you can really take the whole road instead of trying to squeeze on the right side because you think that just cars can take the road. Use your lane position to tell drivers what you're doing and where you're going. That's important. So just with those three first layers, over 90% of crashes can be avoided. So that's really important to keep in mind. Then force avoidance. When you cannot avoid others' mistakes, make sure that you know how to maneuver your bike around a hazard. And really be aware of the road. You cannot be dreaming on your bike. You are really in charge of your own safety. By doing that, you can avoid crashing, or at least limit the consequences of a crash. So when you're on your bike, just be aware of the road and really be an active participant in traffic. All right, and then the fifth layer is the passive safety. Make sure that you wear the right equipment when riding your bike, which includes helmets, gloves, and glasses. We've been giving out helmets through our Bike Safe Fresno program. And one thing that I've really learned about this, which I was not aware about, that some people just think that helmets are really uncool. But the really thing that's uncool is landing in the hospital because you have a bicycle crash and your head is not protected. So even if you just think you're riding around in the neighborhood, a bicycle helmet gives you that layer of security that you need to be safer. So we'll actually be working together with Bpac to give out some helmets later in May. So stay tuned for more information when we have our next bicycle education seminar and when we have a helmet give out. Yeah, make sure that you wear a helmet, and if you have kids, make sure that they have helmets. And I guess if you really think that helmets are uncool, it's important to have a conversation about that issue, because they're just really needed for that last layer of safety. I mentioned that we have a bunch of resources on our website, usgbccc.org/bikesafefresno. But there's also many more videos at the League for Smart Cycling. So you can go to bikeleague.org/ridesmart and find more online videos and quick guides and tips. Yeah, those are all really great resources for you personally, or if you're looking to teach others how to ride a bike in this virtual environment that we are still stuck in, hopefully not for so long. All right, thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over to Harman Dalival, who is going to talk about the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and how to give input into all these issues to the City of Fresno and Public Works.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the introduction. I'm Harman G. Dalival, a supervising professional engineer with Operations and Division of Public Works. I work closely with our capital development team on city projects, as Celio mentioned earlier, and also with the development community and the private sector on when they do developments of in the city. You can move to the next slide, Laura. Yeah, so just an overall overview of Bpac. It's a committee that meets once a month. They meet on the last Wednesday of every month. We had our meeting last night. There are 11 meetings a year. Typically we combine the December and November meetings, so that's why we only have 11. It was formed to provide a means for the public to help city staff realize the following goals: develop and implement strong cyclist policy for bikeways, secure bicycle parking, improve access to public transit, kind of more of a means of intermodal bicycle and carpool coordination, and educational programs for cyclists, drivers, and pedestrians. That was the kind of the overview of what Bpac does. Laura, you can go to the next screen. So the objectives is to advise and recommend policies, pedestrians and bikeway systems. So during the meetings, typically what happens is the Bpac members and public, they comment on what they would like the city to provide in modes of bicycle facilities and pedestrian facilities. So they help with planning, development and maintenance of facilities that we currently have in place. This, coordination with Bpac and city staff, they results in a enjoyable circulation for both utilitarian commuting, travel, and recreation within the city of Fresno. We can move over to the next slide. And so Bpac is represented kind of by council district and by mayoral appointees. Phil Abrayo, who's a chairman, is a mayoral representative, and so is Melanie Rukakova. She's the vice chair. And each council district gets to have a representative. We have 5 representatives from the council districts. 2 are currently vacant. So if anyone is in those council districts and would like to be involved with Bpac as a member, please reach out to your council representative if you're in Districts 1 and in District 4 to be more involved with Bpac. And so just you can go to the next slide, Laura, please. So yeah, just how to get involved with Bpac and input. Attend the Bpac meetings. They are, like I said earlier, held the last Wednesday of every month. They are currently virtual. There's not a link on here, but to find out when they're scheduled and to see the Bpac agendas, they are on the city website under the government tab of where city council is, and you can see the agendas and when the meetings will be held. You can also always reach out to publicworks@fresno.gov and follow procedures to make items that you want to bring to the attention of Bpac and to city staff. And as always, everything can be reported through Fresgo. If you see cyclists, there's not a facility or there's something wrong with a existing facility, that can get reported through Fresgo, and it would make its way to the correct team, and our staff can verify and make corrections as necessary. That is a quick summary of Bpac. We kind of been going through a kind of a change on how Bpac is been providing input and how Bpac the meetings are held. It's coming a little bit more formal. And I believe throughout this year, we would have some good improvements and input from the Bpac members and the public. That was my quick summary of Bpac. I'll pass it back over to you, Laura.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Harman, for the overview. And just a quick tip, when you look for the agenda, you can just Google Bpac Fresno and you get to the page with all the links. So Bpac Fresno in Google gets you where you need to go in case you are not so familiar with the City of Fresno website. That's a very easy way to get to that information. So I guess we are done with our presentation, and now we are open for questions. Thank you so much, Cecilia and Harman again. And yeah, Kimberly, I don't know if you wanted to make some comments after this, but we have a little bit time for a discussion on biking and walking in Fresno and how that's connected to the Transform Fresno program. And don't be shy.
No, I didn't want to make any comments. I'm just glad to see all the exciting work taking place, especially in Southwest Fresno. That area is really needed for bike safe lanes, safety and things like that, especially for the kids out there. There's not a lot of bike lanes out there in West Fresno for the kids. So I'm just happy to see all the exciting work and just can't wait to see it complete. And as an advocate for parks and bikes and trails, this is just something that's just really great to see taking place right now. Laura, you and I have had conversations on bike trails in West Fresno, so I'm just happy to see this project really getting off the ground and getting going.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Kimberly. And yes, we definitely need more work, and this is by no means everything that has to be done. This is just the start of trying to provide more active transportation opportunities. While this grant program is called Transformative Climate Communities, I think we're all aware that it's going to take a lot to get to a place that really downtown Fresno, Chinatown, and Southwest Fresno are transformed into these transformative climate communities. So if there's any questions from the general public, I'm not really aware, Chris, if people have to raise their hand or if there's a chat that they can participate in. How does it work?
It's pretty open. We've got a small group, so if you want to just type it into the chat, or if you want to use the Q&A panel, you can do that as well. You raise your hand, and I can let you speak, and you can ask your question out loud too. So there's lots of ways to do it if you have any questions.
All right, yeah, and I also wanted to mention that we are working with some of the schools in Southwest Fresno. Last fall, we worked with Edison High School on a bicycle education session, and one of the big hindrances for a lot of the students was the availability of bikes. So that is definitely something that has to be addressed. And I'm glad that the Clean Shared Mobility Network, led by the Black Chamber of Commerce, is going to work on bicycle sharing programs. They are still figuring out how exactly to do that. It's not quite that easy to set it up. And we'll be working with King Elementary in the spring. Okay, here's a question. Are there any specific plans for biking for Southwest Fresno for the 2021 year? Well, Cecilia already mentioned that through the Transform Fresno program, the Department of Public Works is going to build the Southwest Fresno Trail. Cecilio, can you give us a little bit of an update on the timeline for the Southwest Fresno Trail?
Sure. So Southwest Fresno Trail at the moment, my understanding, and it's not a project I'm intimately familiar with, but my understanding is that it's going through readiness requirements. So as part of readiness, we have to have several items completed, including the right-of-way. So essentially the portion of land that the trail is going to be on. The city either needs to be in possession of it or needs to have some sort of agreement with the property owners. My understanding is that that's currently being negotiated, and we should have resolution here in the next month or so. Once we have that, then we have to go through a process with TCC to ensure that we can prove to them that we have readiness. And at that point in time, we can begin trying to get a consultant on board. Just a rough estimate, usually that process from consultant to construction takes anywhere from 1 to 3 years. It's a trail project, so I would think probably about 1.5 years. So we're looking at something in more than likely about 2023, 2022, late 2022, early 2023.
And that's for the actual construction of, or the finish of the construction of this Southwest Fresno Trail.
And that's just me kind of spitballing, and just with having an idea of how long the process takes. But again, if you wanted more accurate information, there's the Transform Fresno webpage. You can go directly to project number 5. It will have a point of contact. I know the point of contact is listed as John Honey. However, our manager actually took that over recently, since John Honey is actually no longer with the city. So that email will go directly to him, and he should be able to respond with a little bit better timeline if you wanted to learn a little bit more.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the overview. And I think this is also highlighting how long it takes to actually get bicycle facilities built. It's not something that you can say, hey, we need a new bikeway. Public Works, please get on it, and it's done in 6 months. It's really a really long process. And maybe to highlight that a little bit, Kimberly, I don't know if you have anything to share about your advocacy for safe bikeways in Southwest Fresno, where you can show, yeah, kind of how long it takes, and also the steps where the community can get involved to make their voice heard, and just let the city know that there's a demand for bikeways.
Well, one way to get involved is also attending the bicycle and pedestrian, the Bpac meetings, voicing your concerns, voicing where you would like to see trails at. Another way to get involved, I believe, would be through our advocacy for parks and trails as well. Just becoming a voice for your community. Reaching out to our website, fresnobhc.org, to see our updates on parks and trails and our work, what we're doing. Currently, right now, all of our work has shifted to providing resources for COVID, but we're slowly getting back into our workload, which is advocating for bike lanes and trails. Currently, right now, we are working with Council Member Kabasi's office on Camp P, as we call it, out in San Joaquin River Conservation out there. So right now we're working with that and the residents out there to clean up that area and make it to where everyone is welcomed out there and be able to enjoy all that beautiful land out there. That's like a hidden gem in Fresno. But also our focus is still in South Fresno, advocating for parks and trails in all communities, because we all know that we lack investment in that. So that's where our advocacy is really focusing on. So just reaching out to our website, fresnobhc.org, becoming a volunteer, coming out when we're out there advocating for parks and trails and more bike lanes, and just staying involved. I can be reached at, I can drop my email in the chat, and I can be reached there if you guys want to have a personal conversation with me, or just talk about how you can help and get involved. I'm here. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to come up with the plan, and I'm ready to work with anyone that's willing to advocate for more investment in South Fresno.
Hey,
All
Laura,
right.
I wanted to go back for a second. So I actually am going to save everyone the trip to the Transform Fresno webpage. And the estimated completion for that trail project is summer of 2023. So I wasn't too far off. Summer 2023 is projected for that project number 5, the Southwest Trail.
Wonderful. Thank you for the update, Cecilio. And USGBC is actually going to be involved in the outreach for the actual trail project. So make sure to go to our website. You can also sign up for our newsletter to get information about our upcoming projects, and that will we'll be sharing the dates of upcoming community meetings, and that's going to happen as soon as the city has a consultant on board, because they're not going to do the engineering consulting, just the outreach consulting through the Transform Fresno project. And we really look forward to working together with Edison High School, the Yeovil folks, and then the general community on discussing how these trails are supposed to look like, and what kind of connections we need there, and what kind of amenities. So yeah, public input is very crucial. Do we have any questions from attendees, participants in this webinar? All right, we must have done a really good job providing a good overview over the subject, this chicken and egg question of how can we get more people to safely ride on the roads by both working on bicycle education and working on safe bike roads. And Cecilio mentioned all the different bicycle facilities, and there's 4 of them. The safest ones are number 1 and number 4. The number 1 is a bicycle bikeway that is just separate from the road, which is going to get built through the Southwest Fresno Trail. And then the number 4 is a protected bike lane where you usually have something in between the road and the bicycle road. So we are seeing the city of Fresno put on more of those protected bikeways. We have one on our street. There's going to be one that's coming up on Palm. So that's great to see. I think there's going to be one coming up close to Fresno State as well. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Cecilio.
Unfortunately, I can't talk to that. What I can say is that there are class 4 trails that are, or separated bikeways that are being considered in downtown in a couple of areas that will allow for a cyclist to essentially get from downtown Fresno to Woodward Park. So we're trying to connect all the infrastructure. We know that it's relatively difficult at the moment, but we're trying to make that happen.
Okay, wonderful. And Harmon?
Yeah, hey Laura. Yeah, you had a question you said about the Palm and Belmont class 4?
Yeah, Palm and Belmont. And then there's one that's close to Fresno State, right?
Maple.
Are you
Yes,
familiar with that?
Yes, so Maple, that one, we had to get a rebid. So I believe that one should be awarded to a contractor here soon and should be in construction this year. With Palm and Belmont, the update from yesterday's Bpac meeting was that it's an ATP quick grant. So there's like a time frame of where we have to get that project in construction. So that one should also be moving into construction this year and hopefully complete. That's how the funding is tied to that project. So hopefully by the end of the year, we should have those class 4s all in construction and or complete.
Okay, wonderful. That's great that we'll have more of those. There's a question, are you talking with retailers or bike store owners who will offer incentives to potential bike riders and encourage bike riding? Well, actually, since the beginning of COVID, bike stores are doing tremendously well. If you are out to buy a bike, sometimes you have to wait for a really long time to get one. I was recently in Stevens Bicycles. They have a really long list for bikes to be repaired. So they are really having a good business right now. There is a new bike store in Chinatown that opened last year, and they're fixing up old bikes. So we are in contact with retailers, but they're having their business, and they're not having so many incentives that they're giving out just to make their business work. However, we've been working with the prison in Chowchilla, who has a great program to fix up bikes. And the Fresno County Bicycle Coalition has been collecting bikes in the fall, and then they brought them over, and the inmates fixed up the bikes, and we were lucky to collect some of the bikes to distribute them in Southwest Fresno, amongst others, to King Elementary School, who are using those bikes to start a bike club. So that's been very helpful for the students there to have access to bikes so that they can learn how to ride a bike. Yeah, so that's my answer to that question. Then I see Cyxlavia. I don't know what that's meaning. I don't know if anybody else knows that, but Jerry, I don't know. I cannot answer your question. All right. So Chris gave us a 5-minute warning 5 minutes ago. So I guess we're done. Thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to much more collaboration to get safe bikeways to Fresno and get more bicycle education to our communities, because that's really needed as well. Thank you to Public Works for all their work on this, and to anybody that is interested in having safer roads for bicycles and pedestrians, really make sure to check out Bpac. And it's really important for people to get involved. When the city is applying for grants, if they have a lot of people attending their community outreach meetings, that really means a lot to those that want to give money to the city of Fresno. And so it's important to be part of the conversation. So thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much for all the panelists. Yeah, get involved, stay on track, and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.